Hello YouTube, it is Heart of the Cards here, and today I'm going to do a card preview on Merlin. For those of you who don't know me, I am a very good player on North American ladder. I usually hang around top 10 to top 25. Currently, I'm having a bit of a down season at top 21. So yeah, in the global, not in NA. And NA, I think I'm usually top 10 NA. So today we're going to be talking about Merlin, and we'll get straight into talking about him. So Merlin's effect is at the start of each turn, add an incantation to your hand. We will talk about specifically the incantations in the following part, but for now we'll do a general card breakdown of his strengths, weaknesses, timing, and counters. So the strengths of Merlin is one of his spells gives a cheap ramp option. That's one of the reasons you'll be playing him. The second strength is he has a solid amount of curve filler cards. Because basically he's adding a 1 cost to your hand every turn, meaning you can very effectively play all your energy efficiently, because if you have an extra energy, you can just play one of the Merlin cards, boom, boom, boom. Merlin's a great amount of curve filler, because if you play him on turn 2, you're getting about 3 to 4 turns worth of curve filler. Meaning 3 to 4 cards worth of curve filler. And one of his spells also is basically a location changer. And as we know, Reality Stone is really strong as a 1-cost location changer. This is technically a 1-2 location changer, which is a bit stronger than Reality Stone. So, yeah, he's very solid for location changing reasons. One of his weaknesses is 2 of his spells require tokens, so the way you activate their effect is you get rid of the lowest cost card on your hand, lowest cost card on your board, which is very effective if you're getting rid of like a squirrel on your board. It's not as effective if you play, let's say, a 3-4 and then now you take out that 3-4 for something else. It's not as effective, so you really want those tokens. Something like a Sam Shield would be real effective, a squirrel, or rock even would be really effective, or just generally low power cards. Like, you don't want the hood on your board, so taking it off your board is fine. Another weakness of his, yes, he adds curve filler, but it's very intensive on hand space. So if you're playing like a Merlin in the Thanos, you don't want to do that because you just have too many cards in your hand. There's a maximum of 7 cards. The draw Thanos added starting in hand plus Merlin. You're not to be able to draw it with that type of deck. So that's one of the problems with him, is he really fills up your hand fast. So you can't be playing, and you play a deck that kind of can play cards here and there to lower the hand space issues. And the third part of it is the incantation can be any of the 3 incantations. So there is an inconsistency to them where you can't guarantee any spell. But the good part about that is, kind of like Nico where you can't guarantee any spell, but the good part about that is all the spells are pretty good, so you don't really care what you get. The timing is basically, think of Merlin as a Kate Bishop style card. Ideally, you're playing it on turn 2, but like with Kate Bishop, you're not really mad if you can fit it in the curve at other points of the thing. So he's ideally a curve 2 play, but he's basically a fancy Kate Bishop with different utility and different use cases. His counters are similar to Kate Bishop. Gorgon counters him because now the incantation costs 1 more. Cosmo counters him because all the incantations are on reveal. Killmonger counters him because a lot of the tokens that you would be taking off your board get destroyed by Killmonger, so that's a counter. And Ronin counters him because Merlin adds 4 cards to your hand effectively if you play him on turn 2. Ronin scales with how many cards in your hand. Merlin decks might struggle with dumping a lot of their cards out of their hand, so Ronin would counter that because he would be able to get rid of the incantations. He will be able to punish you for having any leftover incantations in your hand or any leftover cards in your hand. Moving on, here are the exact spells. There's Omniversal Presence, which is replace this location with a new one and get Merlin +2 power, effectively playing for a 1-2. Location changer. Next, there is Once and Future. Shuffle your lowest power card here into your deck to get +2 energy. This is your ramp option, and this is why I said you need tokens for something like Once and Future. Another thing that needs tokens is Polymorph. Transform your lowest power card here into one that costs 1 more. This is effective if you have like a very small card, let's say a hood, 1 -3, transforming that, you're getting value there. Or like a squirrel, odds are whatever 2 costs you get is there'd be more value than that squirrel is. Overall, these spells have a lot of utility. And these are the 3 main aspects you gotta consider, and the overall why you would be putting him in the deck. So the first aspect is he has location changing, which is really strong at 1 cost. Basically, any Merlin deck has a reality stone, and a lot of decks would like to have a reality stone in them, so that's a very strong effect. But furthermore, a lot of decks really love ramp, so the +2 energy ramp is a game-winning effect a lot of time. Think about a single turn Wiccan. If you can get rid of Sam's shield, you basically played a 1-cost single turn Wiccan, which is very strong. Wiccan is a very strong card when you could get the payoff of his ramp in an effective way. So that's a very strong effect in of itself. Now, Polymorph is not as good of an effect, but it is an alright value play that sometimes will high roll. Sometimes your 1 -3 will become like a 2/5, and you're like, oh, that's a great amount of value. Sometimes your 1 -3 will not become a 2/5, it'll become like a 2/2 or something. You get like a Sam Wilson, but you don't have Sam Shield on board. So there are those low rolls, but it's a value play. You're probably playing it for a bit of value, but sometimes there'll be variance. Sometimes you're playing it for a lot of value, sometimes you're playing for a little bit of value. You're playing something like a Sentry with the Void. Now you get rid of the Void. That could be a ton of value, but also you could get just like one of those 5 forward cards that don't do anything for your specific game plan, so there is that level of variance. Overall, I don't think you're playing him for Polymorph. I think Polymorph is just an extra amount of value. I think the location changing is a really strong effect, and a lot of the Merlin decks are going to be built around that ramp aspect because the ramp is the most intriguing part of it. The location changing is going to be strong in basically all the decks, so by making the ramp a really effective thing too, now you have 2 really effective effects, and I think that's going to be great for you overall if you're building around that ramp specifically. So these are the decks that I have in mind. Obviously, I'm a Surfer main. I had to figure out a Surfer angle here. You know, I'm caught. Surfer main puts a Surfer deck in his key type of decks, but I think it could work. The interesting part about Surfer is Surfer likes ramp, and I think we're hitting a critical mass of what I call 2-cost ramp cards. So Jennifer Kell is also coming out. She's a 2-cost ramp card. Merlin would be a 2-cost ramp card, and then we could throw in a Luna there, and now we hit very interesting energy breakpoints. And I think something even like a Jennifer Kell into Luna hits very interesting breakpoints where turn 4 you could have 6 energy, turn 5 you have 6 energy, turn 6 you have 7 energy. So now you could play 3 3 3 3 3 plus absorbing, man, and that's a very interesting thing if you don't draw like a Galacta. Or you can play like a 3, or you can play a 2 and a 4 with Galacta, and then you can play 3 3 3 and then the 4 with Absorber. Man, I think that's very interesting. I want to explore this Ramp Surfer. I think Merlin adds the interesting part to Ramp Surfer. Sam's Shield is my solution to not putting too many tokens in my deck. Sam's Shield always has a token on deck, so Merlin is always activated with Sam's Shield. So there's 2 different uses for Sam's Shield. Sam's Shield helps Carter, Sam's Shield helps Merlin, Sam's Shield helps Sam. I think that's an interesting enough reason to put Sam in here and for Sam to do a lot of work. Before I was making Sam do a lot of work by priority reasons. The priority reasons don't exist anymore. I think a Merlin angle could be an interesting reason to get Sam back into the deck. Now for Merlin, there's 3 targets for Merlin. There's kind of a 4th target, but not the greatest target. So obviously there's the Sam Shield, there's the Lunar Snow Ice Cube, which isn't that bad either. You can get rid of the Ice Cube and make it into a power. You can get rid of the Ice Cube and make it into something else. Rhino, you can get rid of the Rock, make it into something else. Jennifer Kell, at worst, you can throw Jennifer Kell with the Polymorph, and now she's a 3 drop, you can buff that. So I think there's a bunch of like small little interesting angles you could do with that. And I think overall that Ramp Surfer is interesting because Surfer also just like Ramp in general, and I think by stacking a bunch of Ramp cards and a bunch of interesting payoffs, you could make maybe a real deck. This deck might need a bit of optimization here and there to put out a bit more power, but I think the general concept of stacking ramp, especially 2-cost ramp, could be a very interesting thing because a lot of the time, if you're getting like 1 or 2 of these, you'd be hitting breakpoints where you have like 6, 7 energy on turns like 5 and 4, which which could just win you a game. The second deck I think uses it a lot more naturally would be something like a Merlin Clog. Merlin can get rid of the hood, that's fine. Merlin can get rid of the debris rocks, that's fine. Merlin adds a few cards here. Maybe location changes the magic. Now you just scam them. There's a lot of interesting ways, and Clog isn't really giving up too much. I don't think Shadow King is especially strong into this meta, so that's what he would be changing with. And I think there's enough interesting aspects to at least test a Merlin in this deck. So overall, I think the key considerations for a Merlin deck will be tokens. You need either bad cards that you want to get rid of, like the Hood. You want to get rid of the Hood because he is a 1-3. Getting rid of him in either of the two ways Merlin can is nice. It's basically a second Viper. Getting rid of your rocks and making rocks into power is nice because your rocks are doing something else as well, and that might help you win a clogged lane for less investment. And yeah, so as long as you have like 1 to 2 consistent token bodies, I think you're fine with Merlin. If you don't have 1 to 2 consistent token bodies, I think that is a problem. But other than that, if they're token bodies or they're just like the Hood and they're like low power cards you want to get rid of, I think that's the ideal number. What else you need is payoffs. When you're ramping, you want a reason to ramp. That's more than just, oh, I'm just gonna play the Merlin curve filler here and we'll have a good time. You know, play Merlin ramps and then he curve fills. It's good all around. That's not necessarily the case. You want a bit more of these ramp payoffs. Something for me like an absorbing man or getting an extra 3-drop on board is enough to justify it possibly in Surfer. And something to justify it in Clog is, oh, I get to accelerate my Clog. Now I can clog them even quicker, and now they have less time to play around my Clog. That's a very strong thing to do. Okay, maybe I can justify Merlin's ramp. Just get rid of a rock here, plus 2 energy on this turn, and now I can fill them up even quicker, and they don't have as much counterplay to it because I am playing more energy, and I can do weird Clogs that I normally wouldn't be able to do. I think that's interesting. Something else Merlin decks need is flexible curve. You need decks that have about 2 turns worth of like where you can fit in curve filler. With Surfer, I think you can fit it in on turn 4 with a Luna Snow. Now you have an extra energy here, so you can play like a 4 and a 1. If you don't draw Galacta and you only have Merlin, you could be like a 3 and a 1 for turn 4. And then turn 5, you can fill it out with 2 Merlin spells if you don't end up drawing any of your ramp. And then turn 6, you can even put a bit of filler here. So I think there's enough turns in this ramp style Surfer to justify having this filler. And in Clog, I think you'll have at least 1 or 2 turns usually where you're like, oh, I want to play, I don't know, a Titania Goblin on turn 5 or a Titania Viper on turn 5, and you're like, I have this extra energy, what can I do with it? You're like, okay, with either Merlin or depending if you had the Cape Bishop early, you're like, I could use those 2 cards as curve filler, and they're both fine things to do. So I think those 2 decks have enough like turns where they might not be spending exactly all their energy, but they're spending their energy as efficiently as possible, and playing just an extra card there will make it even more efficient. Overall, I think the deck building cost on Merlin is, you need to limit the amount of cards that add extra cards to your hand. So Thanos being an extra card in your hand from start of game, not great. Thanos drawing more cards, not great. Something like a King E3, not great because you're just adding too many cards into your hand. Something like a Hawkeye K Bishop, I don't think is particularly great with it, but in this deck I think it's fine because basically if you have both Merlin and Hawkeye K Bishop, basically what you're saying is, I'm fine with just playing one of them. If I draw Merlin on 2, I'm playing Merlin. If I draw K Bishop on 2, I'm playing K Bishop on 2. And I'm fine with that. I'm not playing the other one. If you're fine with that, then I think that's fine. But something like an IU would be really bad with Merlin. Because you're playing Merlin, he's adding too many cards to hand. You're playing IU, he's adding even more cards to hand. No bueno. So I think Merlin doesn't fit in those decks that are playing other generators, except for maybe Kate Bishop being the exception. But otherwise, I think he fits fine into all those decks that aren't doing that. Like I said, you need a bit of a flexible curve. You want a reason to be running curve filler. You're playing a deck that plays a 5-on-5 and a 6-on-6, and then like a 4-on-4 usually. It's probably not the best because you don't have like any extra breakpoints where you could just fit in an extra card, and there's no reason to run curve filler if your curve is basically always smooth. Generally, he wants tokens, like I said, or low power cards. You just need something for those 2 Merlin spells to hit. Sam Shield could be enough. Sam Shield plus something else is very interesting. And if you can fit a 3rd thing into there, I think it's extremely interesting. And overall, I just think you need some ramp payoffs. You need reasons to be maybe accelerating your curve a bit. What are you going to use that plus 2 energy on? Maybe now, like in the Clog example, maybe your turn 7 looks like a Gore plus Spell plus Hood plus Titania. That's a decent reason to run the ramp. You're playing a bit of extra power total there. I think Clog has a bit less of a reason with ramp payoffs other than accelerating the Clog on earlier turns. But I think Ramp Surfer has very interesting reasons. It really values playing an extra 3. It also really values, maybe you can get an extra you can do like a Prodigy and a 3 now. That's interesting. You could also find ways to sneak in like an Absorbing Man here. And I think just overall, by opening up the amount of play lines, it will add a lot more high rolls to Surfer with something like that. So I think it's interesting ramp payoffs for both these decks in different ways. Ramp Surfer is more power. Clog would be more like accelerating the clog and just clogging your opponent and locking out the game earlier. So overall, how do I rate Merlin? I think Merlin is a flexible card that as long as you have about maybe 1 to 2 enablers, and enablers being like tokens and like a Sam Wilson, you're fine. Or just 2 to 3 enablers in general, you're fine. I think Merlin just needs a bit of enablers to be like, okay, I can use those 2 spells quite often, I'm fine, let's go. Let's ball with Merlin, he's a great card overall. Competitive. I think that limiting location variance with location changing is a really strong effect. I think that ramp is really strong when used well. I think Merlin will be competitive just on those 2 spells alone. And the 3rd spell would just be a bit of extra value. Difficulty, I think it'll be quite easy because you're just playing strong, cheap cards that are filling out curve. You're just playing more efficiently. He's a machine to make you play more efficiently. When you're drawing a bit worse, maybe you gotta fill a power, an extra energy here, an extra energy there, and that's what Merlin does. That's his bread and butter, and I think it'll be easy to play. Maybe you can find the maximal value. It might be a bit harder to play, like what card, when do I want to ramp? Do I want to ramp now? Do I want to ramp later? If you only have 1 ramp card, do I want to location change this or that? That's a bit of difficulty, but I think overall his power is extremely strong. And overall, I think Merlin would be a great card. He's like the new Kate Bishop, where everyone, like Kate Bishop's a great card right now, especially when Kate Bishop came out. I think Merlin's a bit stronger than Kate Bishop, but he's kind of like Kate Bishop to me when she came out. She was a great card, and you can fit her in a lot of decks. Very interesting. I think Merlin had slightly different hooks by the nature of his spells versus by nature of Kate Bishop, but I think he's like a Kate Bishop plus level card, which is like, to me, like at least a 4 out of 5 card, and to me, he's probably a 5 out of 5 card. He seems great. And I really want to experiment with him. Thank you guys all for watching. If you guys do not watch my Twitch, it's at Heart of the Cards Twitch. My Twitch is Heart of the Cards Snap. I stream about 5 times a week. I play a bunch of decks now. In my past, I've said I mostly play Surfer. Right now, Surfer kind of sucks. Not gonna lie. The OTA hit me. They took the priority out of priority Surfer. No bueno to me. I can't play Surfer. I can't climb with it. I don't know what to tell you. Recently, I've been playing Hella. One of my friends is a really good Hella player. He's been teaching me a bit. I think today I played it alone. I had like a 71% with it. It's a very interesting deck. It's a lot more high rolly. It's a bit more complicated, where you gotta be seeing the lines a bit earlier, and it's not as muscle memory to me as Surfer is right now. I've been really enjoying the deck. So if you want to check out my gameplay of Hella, Surfer, or whatever I happen to be deciding to play on that day, check me out at twitch.tv, Heart of the Cards Snap. And otherwise, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video.